But for the latest in the Adani US indictment case, let me hand it over to Ankur Mishra, who's joining us right now. Ankur, take it away.
Yes, agencies have reported that big banks of Japan has lent support to Adani, meaning they do not want to break ties with Adani despite the bribery charges which has been there. These banks are Japan's Mizuho Bank, Mitsui, and also Mitsubishi UFJ. So despite all these concerns, these banks may continue the support to Adani. But the bigger question is, there is a global divide between stakeholders, how they are assessing the situation. To make this complex matter simple, I have been joined by two gentlemen, Mr. Abizer Diwanji and Sanjay Asher. Mr. Asher and Mr. Diwanji, welcome to ET Now. First, I would want to come to you, Mr. Asher. Are these banks seeing these problems in a long-term basis and not short-term?
Absolutely. They are seeing this from a long-term basis. They would have analyzed the entire facts and circumstances, and then they would have come to a decision or a conclusion that they want to support the Adani group. They would have considered not only the financial position, but also the legal position as it stands before the SEC and the DOJ, and then come to this particular decision, in my view.
Right. To Mr. Diwanji, as far as we have been covering banking, there is a reputational risk, there is a financial risk. But despite that, you've seen that Japanese lenders may continue the support to Adani. How these banks would be assessing the situation according to you?
First of all, banks are very focused on lending and lending to specific projects which have a high probability of cash flows. That's the most important thing. Now, given the group's ability to construct and execute contracts well, I think from a credit risk perspective, which is the main criteria on which lending is done, most people would take a view that there is no problem with the credit. Yeah, if it's a governance issue or any other issue, I think those will be taken as a secondary aspect. They're important, but they'll be taken as secondary aspects. Now, given the Japanese banks focus on India as a country and the infrastructure bill that they wish to finance, look at Japanese companies that have entered a financing space. They're, a couple of them are also bidders for Yes Bank as well as for IDBI Bank. Their credit focus on India is very bullish. And because that is bullish, and India requires some large ticket deployment, I'm not surprised that they would maintain a view till such time that any indictment is proven or reaches a serious stage.
Right. Also, there seems to be a global divide between the stakeholders. Mr. Asher, on one hand, you would see that Japanese lender, now the news has come, Middle East banks are lending their support. But few of the names like Barclays and Jefferies are thinking on the other side. Why do you think there is a global divide?
There is always, there are always two views on any legal issues. So therefore, obviously, there would be a legal divide between the European banks and the Middle Eastern banks and the Japanese bank. Now, both the banks or both the banks of different jurisdiction would have analyzed, and then they would have come to a conclusion. But having regard to the facts and circumstances, if Japanese bank and the Middle Eastern bank have come to a decision to support the Adani group, so I'm sure they would have done their homework.
Right. One question I would want to ask to both of you, how should investors assess this situation? I'm sure you would have analyzed the situation which is there. You would have seen the US charges which has come out in open. How do you assess, Mr. Diwanji, first to you?
So as far as investors are concerned, I think investors need to be able to wait and watch. Their issues are always going to be around, as I said, execution and the company's ability to deliver profits. Now, from an equity investor perspective, it's going to be ability to deliver profits and pay a return on capital. And as far as debt is concerned, it's going to be, again, the ability to generate cash flows enough to pay debt obligations. And I think as long as these two things are assessed in an objective manner, and you just said, you asked the question to Sanjay to say, why are some people having a different view, etc. So when investors look at it, most should look at it in an objective financial manner. Whoever tends to look at it beyond the financial manner obviously has other compulsions which forces them to take other decisions. So I guess people will take their decisions basis wherever the compulsions are. Institutional investors, especially from the US, will have bigger compulsions in their country answerable to their own investors, and they may take a different call. A normal investor who only views return and reviews efficacy of cash flows will base it on that. So in my view, the primary consideration should be returns and efficacy of cash flow.
Right. What is your opinion, Mr. Asher? How should investors look? Because the global divide will always be there. But the important factor for investors is their money they are investing, and these developments are little complex.
I would see from a long-term perspective, yes, as Abizer articulated, everything is robust, and therefore the investor should see from a long-term perspective or a medium-term perspective. And I would say that from a medium-term to long-term perspective, it's all green.
Right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining at this hour, Mr. Diwanji and Mr. Asher. So the view is simple. Keep the view long term, and wait and watch should continue. It's a time to take a short break, and the coverage on news and updates will continue.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.